All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Johns Hopkins School of Education Doctor of Education webinar focusing on the problem of practice. My name is Sion John. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions here at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. And also presenting today, we have a student speaker from the EdD program, Hannah Abu Bakr, and a faculty member of the Doctor of Education program, Dr. Yolanda Abel. Next, I would like to share the agenda for today's presentation. I'll introduce Dr. Abel, and then Dr. Abel will go over on how to write an effective problem of practice. We also have a student speaker, Hannah Abu Bakr from the EdD program, and she'll talk about her problem of practice and also her experience here at SOE. And please note that we'll be covering questions related to the problem of practice. Any detailed program questions should be emailed to the EdD department. And admissions-related questions should be emailed to the Office of Admissions. And for faculty introduction, Dr. Yolanda Abel is an associate professor and immediate past chair of the Department of Advanced Studies in Education at Johns Hopkins University School of Education. Dr. Abel has held several leadership roles within the American Educational Research Association, specifically in the Family School Community Partnership Special Interest Group, where she is past chair, and her dissertation, African American Father Involvement in Their Children's School-Based Lives, earned the 2008 Judith Rutschkin Research Award from the Maryland Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development. And at this time, I will hand the floor over to Dr. Abel. Welcome, Dr. Abel.
Thank you. Greetings. It's my pleasure to be with you here this evening. I don't know if I can advance the slide, so Sion, thank you. I'm going to share a little bit about our program tonight with a particular emphasis on the problem of practice. I have been here with the School of Ed since 2000. I am one of the original members of this particular EdD program. And so it is designed with the thought in mind that we are helping individuals who are already in education for the most part and who are focused on making it better in some respect for students, teachers, the larger community, depending on what it is you respectively do. And so as an education practitioner, how do you think critically about the problems that you're encountering and the solutions that you might want to enact? How are you looking at the most robust perspective in relation to understanding the contributing issues and factors associated with that challenge? And then identifying what might be the most reasonable piece for you to make an impact or a change with. So I'm not reading the vision and mission per se, they're on the screen behind, but that's kind of the focus of how we have approached this program. And in particular, we as the EdD faculty have a commitment to cultivating the curiosity that you already come into this program with, or you wouldn't be considering a doctorate degree and looking to make the kind of change and impact that potentially this degree will assist with, and critical discourse, and looking at that through the lenses of social justice, system thinking, appropriate research methods, and empirical inquiry. And appropriate research methods is really thinking about what you want to do. If it is a fairly new issue or concern, maybe you want a more exploratory approach from a qualitative perspective. So it really is trying to figure out how to make the best fit for your professional needs and the desired impact. I must have money on my brain. All right, next slide, please. So who is this degree good for? Who's an ideal candidate? An education practitioner, and that is broadly defined. We have had students who've been classroom teachers, administrators, district level administrators, university faculty, university administrators, people who worked as consultants in private practice, or who might have done the educational component for sports entities like the NCAA, for companies like IBM. Our students are literally all over the world. Brazil, South Africa, Kyrgyzstan, across the United States. So it is more so about your orientation, your mindset, that you are looking for ways to better utilize the research in your decisions around what you're doing in your particular area of practice and how it might make a difference for whomever your constituent group is. Next slide, please. So program requirements. This is a doctoral degree. People come into this one with their master's already. This is not the type of program where you earn the master's and then the doctorate. Ideally, you are coming in with a master's degree of approximately 36 credits. You will see the slide says 30 to 36. So if you have a master's that had fewer than 36 credits, you will need some additional credits, which you can take through coursework here or elsewhere. You must take a minimum of 48 credits here at Hopkins in the program. And if you have a 36 credit or more masters, because some are actually more than that, there is the potential to transfer in 6 additional credits. And I say the potential because right now we look at course matching. So it's not just any 6 credits, but a course that you have taken before that aligns highly with the course that we are offering. Next slide, please. So our current areas of interest are creativity, advanced learning, and twice exceptionality, digital age learning and educational technology, entrepreneurial leadership and education, mind, brain, and teaching, and urban leadership. These have been the core over the years that we've been having this program. The initial cohort ran in 2013. You will see that there's an asterisk by the mind, brain, and teaching option. If you earned a master's or a certificate that included the mind, brain, and teaching masters here at the School of Education, if and when you apply to the EdD program, you need to select one of the other areas of application. Thank you. Next slide, please. So this is a rigorous program. You are earning a doctoral degree. I often tell the students I interact with, this is not like earning another master's. It's definitely not like earning your undergrad degree. And partially what makes that different is the emphasis on research, the type of articles that you'll be reading, and the systemic perspective that you are going to apply to an issue or concern from your professional setting. Communicating research in modalities other than scholarly writing. And what we mean by that is that the world is changing. And while scholarly writing will never go away, social scholarship, the use of Twitter, blogs, newsletters, podcasts, things of that nature are becoming more common within the profession, primarily because we want to be able to get the information out to people in accessible ways. Lots of people don't read journal articles just to read journal articles. This is designed to be a 4-year program. It is online asynchronous with synchronous support, meaning that your classes are asynchronous. There's usually at least one sync session during the course of the semester. There are other programmatic sync sessions that might happen in relation to understanding your problem of practice, thinking about how to conduct a good interview based on what the program thinks your needs might be and the deliverables of the program. And the doctoral dossier is completed. Well, let me rephrase that. The doctoral dossier coursework is embedded, or components is embedded within your coursework. I wanted to not necessarily say completed, because depending on what it is you're doing, the time frame, it might not happen, but the core of it, the bulk, is designed to be within the coursework that you take. Next slide, please. So how do I identify a problem of practice? Your problem of practice should be directly observable, actionable, strategic, and transformational. For sake of discussion, if you work at an institution of higher ed, and you decide that once you're undergrad, and you decide that your alumni are not voting in the general populist elections and things of that nature, is that really a problem of practice for you as an institution of higher ed? They're out of your perspective at that point. You can't control what they do or don't do. So thinking about that issue, how might you reframe it? So if I'm going to stay at this Institute of Higher Ed undergrad, and I have a focus on wanting the undergrads to be civic-minded, civic engaged, to demonstrate some way that they are being citizens of a community they live in, then maybe my thing is that we don't have a service learning component at my institution. And I can see that that doesn't exist. Looking at the course catalog, talking with other people, is that potentially actionable? Yes, depending on the protocols of the institution that you work at. How do you propose a new class? How do you form partnerships? Most universities have a third mission of service as it is. How do you connect with the office that might do that? And those are the types of things that help make it strategic. And then ideally, it will be transformational in the sense of what types of opportunities will be designed in this service learning for your students to give back. So that's an example kind of off the top of my head, truthfully, in relation to what a problem of practice might be and how it can be directly observable, actionable, strategic, and transformation. How do I identify a problem of practice? So again, you're professionals. There are things that frustrate you. There are things that you spend a lot of time talking, thinking about, reflecting on with your colleagues, your supervisors, maybe even your family or friends if it's been that kind of day and you've had some frustration. So thinking about what you've observed in your organization. What might limit the effectiveness of something that you want to do? I often say resources are limited, and I mean that across the board in terms of people, time, money. What issues have you observed that if you found some way to help address them might improve the lives and experiences of those individuals that are served by your organization, or that might then set a template or a process that other educational organizations might use who work with a similar population on a similar issue or concern? Next slide, please. So part of the application is the crafting of a POP statement. It is fairly short, so it's succinct. You are talking to us about a broad problem that exists in society. So if we think back to my example about citizenship at a undergrad higher ed institution, the broad problem might be the larger lack of citizenship activities by civic empowerment, voting, things of that nature, that you then personalize to some extent, that again, within the context of the undergrad community college, higher ed institution I'm talking about, that maybe there's no service learning that encourages, gives practice and the opportunity for ways that they might be civically engaged. So kind of what's the bigger issue? How does it manifest itself in your professional setting? We are asking for at least 3 evidential statements. You do not necessarily need to reference the literature. You can, well, this does say including citations, but the literature can also be the gray literature. So thinking about a journal article, a newspaper, and again, in today's world, the podcast, the tweet, the APA manual has the reference citations for all those types of formats. And this is how you know that it exists. So it isn't just because you think, but it might be that when students were polled, again, going back to my undergrad, higher ed, and asked what civic opportunities they participate in, that there was less than 10% who identified that they did. So we have a data point from a survey. There might be an informal focus group that the advising office puts out to see what students are thinking and opportunities, but just how do you know? And what might the larger literature or more traditional literature think about your topic? And in this case, civic engagement of undergrads or young adults. And so telling us a little bit about how this is in your professional context, and then how it potentially connects with one of our area of focus. So is it kind of in that digital space? Is it in the exceptionality space? Is it in the urban learning space? Is it in the mind-brain teaching? At this juncture in this problem of practice, we are not looking for your solution. We are looking for your understanding of what the problem is, broadly speaking, and how it manifests in your particular setting. Thank you. Next slide. So as you are thinking about this POP and sitting down to write it, again, what issue have you observed? How is this issue problematic? Is there data available to illustrate the evidence of the issue? How is this problem manifesting itself in your professional context? And what part of the POP or that problem might you be able to make an impact or an influence on? And that last question is really key. What part? It is very unlikely that you will be able to solve a problem in totality, if for no other reason that this is a 4-year program. You want to finish and we want you to finish. So kind of what's the component within that again is manageable and potentially action-oriented for the organization you are affiliated with. Thank you. Next slide. So these are examples of problem of practice thematic statements, I guess. You don't necessarily get all of the details, but achievement disparities among traditionally underserved students, instructional differences between culturally and linguistically diverse populations, low technology use in low-income schools, low use of data-driven decision-making by community college faculty, misinterpretation of student evaluations of teaching, high levels of reported stress in undergraduate speech-language pathology students. Again, the broad problem that you then personalize for your particular setting. Thank you. Next slide. I would like to turn the mic over to Hannah, and if I'm saying your name wrong, please correct me, so that she can talk a little bit about her actual perspective as someone who has more recently gone through the application process and who is currently enrolled in the program.
Hi, Dr. Abel. Thank you so much. Can you all hear me good? Okay, perfect. That's like, I don't want to start talking and then nobody can hear me. That would be awful. Yes, you pronounced my name correct. Hi, everyone. My name's Hannah Abubakar. I am officially in year 2 of the program, which is yay, exciting. I made it through year 1. And so my area of interest is mind, brain, and teaching. And I'm currently looking at the connection between low science proficiency level and how that impacts overall high school science proficiency. And I'm kind of tweaking this, and you'll find that your problem of practice, and I'm sure Dr. Abel can agree, is not what it is when it comes in. When I first came into the program, my problem of practice was all about stress and anxiety. And when I started sifting through, I was like, well, actually, this stress and anxiety is part of a bigger problem. It's part of the actual decline in science proficiency that we see. So I'm currently looking at that and kind of filtering it out and looking at pedagogy and how that might influence it. So TBD, essentially. But that's one of the reasons that I chose Johns Hopkins for my research, because you really get to produce work and research in an authentic environment where it's okay to not know, and it's okay to change where you're going, because you're really letting your problem guide you and you're not coming in with a solution. And I think that's like the real that kind of, it's what I did. I was like, okay, yeah, I know what's wrong. Kids are stressed and it's because school sucks. And I'm learning that that's not the situation. I'm a high school chemistry teacher, so I teach full time, and I'm doing this program alongside that. And there's so many highlights, but one of the most recent ones was the summer in-person residency program. I'm actually serving on the student advisory board last year and this year also. And so the student advisory board and I got to lead the in-person residency program, and we had Dr. EdD Carson come and speak, and we had some of the faculty members come and speak, and it was a really great time. And actually just the friends that I've made, that's been a really big highlight and a confidence boost for myself as somebody who has kind of always been unsure, especially in the way that I present. I'm a first-generation immigrant to America. I'm born and raised in London, but my parents are immigrants to London. I'm a woman who wears hijab. I'm a woman of color. And so all of those things, I just never knew if I had a space. And at Johns Hopkins in this program, I definitely have a space, which is really nice. I guess some tips. Online learning really requires you to be self-regulated. There's a discipline to it, and the cool thing about Johns Hopkins is that your professors really view you as scholars. And so if you're walking into this program and kind of expecting people to tell you how to do things and hold your hand, that's really not what you're going to get. They're going to ask you questions, they're going to challenge you, and in that moment of discomfort is where your pop changes and then you grow. And it's scary but it's fun, and you really get to kind of push the limits on what you think you had in terms of your personal craft. And you really have to put yourself out there. It was really hard for me to make some friends and put myself out there. I'm naturally a little bit introverted, but now I am here after presenting at the residency, and now I'm, with all of you guys, and Dr. Abel's like, you're not introverted, and I'm like, definitely am. But kind of being in this program just gives you that confidence that you're here, you earned your space here, and you can do it. And really, truly, what you put in is what you get out. And the friends I've made for life, and I'm actually going to be visiting with some of them in a couple of weeks, just to hang out, just because we met through the program. And yeah, I think I covered everything. Is there anything else? I think we're good.
So these are some frequently asked questions. What's the relationship between the student's context of professional practice and the EdD program's problem of practice and applied dissertation or doctoral dossier? And ideally, you are working at some place or with some group of people that will allow you to be able to do some aspect of something. And on some levels, that was very vague, but it is also quite that broad. Most of the people who come through this program are working adults and make life decisions. And what I mean by that is you change jobs. So the job you had when you started may not necessarily be the job that you have halfway through or when you're approaching the finish line. So one of the reasons why it can be interesting to have a somewhat broad conceptualization of your problem is that if you're not necessarily in the same exact location, you can still move forward. So for sake of discussion, I started out with a student once who worked at a charter school in New Jersey and then moved to a founding charter school in New York that was doing it one grade at a time. So while the location was not the exact same, it was still within the charter network, and her area of focus was specifically on African-American males and college and career readiness. So she could still do her project, and a lot of the research and background information she had built up from when she started and was at a prior place was applicable to the place that she was. What is the relationship between the problem of practice and a candidate's selected area of interest? If you've been involved in education, you know there are connections across almost all aspects, but ideally you are picking the selected area of interest that is most germane to you. One of the questions, which will be addressed again later in the chat, is about, clarifying twice exceptionality. So if you were really interested in working with the population that might be identified as gifted and having some aspect of neurodiversity like ADHD, maybe that's the place that you want to focus on, even if your setting is in an urban environment. So like picking what you think the best fit is, so to speak, in relation between your issue of interest and our areas of interest. Must the problem of practice be drawn from the workplace? It is easier to do so because ideally you're going to do something. The doctoral dossier has a tad more flexibility and growth in the sense that, again, you change jobs. I had another student once who worked internationally, returned to the United States, and was doing something totally different. But the consistent thing in this particular student's life was the volunteer work they did in sports and boxing in particular. And so the problem of practice evolved into the educational component for coaches, especially coaches that work with students, adolescent athletes who had the desire to kind of go the junior Olympic route and ideally the Olympic route. So I think we as a program are very supportive, but it is easier to do this if you can be somewhat consistent in the type of work you do. And does your problem practice need to be fully defined in your application essay? I will allow SOE admissions to correct me later if I'm wrong in the Q&A, because I know we tweaked the application, but historically, this essay is 750 words, so it's not that long. So you can't tell us a lot. So it really is kind of broad issue, how it manifests in my setting, the 3 ways that I know how, supported by some level of evidence, and then what connection or area of interest do you think would be helpful for you to better examine that problem? Thank you. So we are now at the Q&A. Sion, I don't know if you want to start with the questions you've identified for live and we just work our way through.
Sure, and Dr. Abel, feel free to read the program-related questions, read and answer those questions. And while you're doing that, if I see any admissions-related questions, I will answer the students. But Dr. Abel, yes, you are correct about the 750 word limit for the problem of practice. So thank you.
Thank you. So, is it possible to send us the information from the slideshow regarding the problem of practice and statement? So Sion, I will defer to you, but I know we usually make these available, usually through YouTube, but it's been a moment since I've done one of these, but yes, we make them available. Is there anything you'd like to add?
So this webinar, yes, it is recorded and it is uploaded onto YouTube. We'll send the recorded video within 10 business days to all registrants.
Dr. Abel, you were the one who did the one that I attended. Just
I have done them, so thank you.
come full circle.
Yes, it is accurate at this moment that if you did the MBT certificate, you cannot do the MBT emphasis or area of interest within the EdD, primarily to expand your thought process. It doesn't mean that the literature and the content and some of the faculty like Dr. John Bull, who are associated with the MBT on the master's level, that you couldn't work with them, take classes with them, and be involved. But it is about being more expansive in your perspective and approach, in particular around MBT. So Jean, that was the answer to that question. Does the program put emphasis on preparing students for academic roles, or is the focus elsewhere? So from a programmatic perspective of how and why this was created or originated, it was more about helping people become scholar practitioners in their current place of employment. However, as I said, you were working adults. So there have been people who, once they've graduated from here, have transitioned into faculty roles, people who have transitioned into, my mind just had a little moment, evaluation research type roles within school districts, but that's not the focus of the program, and that's not how we shift it. Some of it obviously is about your interest and your overall preparation and what you ultimately choose to do in relation to your doctoral dossier. Is having a job an absolute requirement while in the program? No, in the sense that we can't make you work, but in the sense that this is a program that is designed to be embedded within your work context. You do need something that you are somewhat stable, that you have a stable relationship with. I gave the interaction of the student who came back into the United States and switched his focus to what was stable in his life, which was his volunteer experience with boxing, and focused on that. So the idea, and Hannah, I don't know if you want to chime in here as well when I finish speaking, is that you are spending time from when you come in, exploring your problem broadly, seeing what's out there, what's been done, what seems to be effective, then starting to kind of narrow down to what seems practical and actionable within your context, and then doing something practical and actionable and ultimately graduating. So it does help to have some consistency of, I'm going to say employment, but something you hang your hat on. Yes.
Yeah, so just to piggyback off of what Dr. Abel said, it's definitely going to help you to be consistent. it does add to that, you know, work-life balance kind of situation. But like I mentioned, I am a full-time teacher and my research is based around my context. And doing that like allows you to have easy access to the different resources that you need. And it really helps you kind of not be too scatterbrained about the different things that you might be interested in doing, because what you'll find within that first year is that you'll be given so many different viewpoints and so much different information that if you don't have something that's consistent, for me personally, it would have been really difficult for me to stick with my pop, because you just get so excited and so drawn into so many different parts of the program, that yeah, to just echo Dr. Abel's thoughts, yeah, having that consistency is definitely helpful.
So school counseling would be a good background for mind, brain, and teaching. Technically speaking, your background doesn't really matter for which emphasis. If you are drawn to mind, brain teaching because you kind of have an area of interest, and maybe your school counseling supported that in regards to more of the neurological aspects of learning and things of that nature, then that might be the best area of focus. But to some extent, again, it depends on your POP. From a school counseling perspective, if you were more interested in extracurricular activities and ways that supported students more psychomotorly than cognitively, then I wouldn't say it would be mind brain teaching. I would say that maybe urban leadership and thinking about ways that you utilize partnerships to create after school programming and other initiatives that support students more holistically or beyond the academics. And to that end, there's another question of what is the ELE specialization? Entrepreneurial leadership in education. So individuals that have a more entrepreneurial mindset. This is not a business program in the sense that the goal of this is to like develop your business plan, but usually people who choose to do that specialization have a focus in leadership and or entrepreneurial leadership. Students have created their own consulting businesses. Hopkins does have an incubator, if you will, that a student can pitch an idea to and might get funding. That's not a guarantee. It's not an obligation or a requirement of the program, but persons who do ELE are usually more in that space. Is there a model you make available for the POP? I'm wondering if we just need to identify the problem and get the research on it, or if we should raise hypotheses or solutions. Definitely not solutions, because you will explore that, and what you think is the solution most likely will not be the solution, as Hannah was saying earlier, as you progress through the program and take your classes and do your readings and so on and so forth. And again, 750 words, so not a lot of space. And ideally, you are picking something that already matters to you. So to the other question about any advice on how to narrow down your POP, again, my example is, what do you spend time talking to your colleagues about? What do you come home and complain to your significant other or your family member about? Like, that is usually the space and the place that you will identify the POP that is important to you. Many moons ago, in the 90s, I was involved in direct service work with teen parents here in the city of Baltimore. So this was prior to my transition to higher ed and earning my own doctorate. And in particular, especially here in Maryland, that was like the height of the Deadbeat Dad campaign. And in particular, Black dads, Baltimore City. So I identify as Black. I know lots of Black fathers who are involved, who are invested, and who pay their child support. So thinking about the bigger problem of, you know, parental involvement and child support in particular, I decided I really wanted to tell the story of African-American father involvement, because I just thought the narrative was so deficit oriented. So like thinking about the larger problem of parent involvement with a particular emphasis on child support, because that was like the spark. But then in particular for what I was doing, for my work with teen moms, I also got into doing fatherhood work. So I then wanted to really focus on telling that story. So kind of big and broad around parent involvement and child support in particular, and then telling a counter narrative, if you will, that not all Black dads were deadbeat dads. And so that's kind of how I narrowed down. So I think the best advice I can give you really is to think back to what is it that you kind of sort of spend your time complaining about or wishing were different. And that's probably the sweet spot where you'll find your POP. Hannah, is there anything you want to say about your process of going through your POP?
Sure. So I think for me, like, it was really difficult seeing my students come into class and be so overwhelmed when it came to taking a test in chemistry. Like, I had students have anxiety attacks, kids would cry, they would be sick on test days, and then sick on makeup test days. And there was just all these avoidance strategies, and that was really hard for me. And then what I was seeing was that generally the level of proficiency in science, high school science, was kind of low. And so I thought that stress and anxiety was my problem, because I worked in I still do, I work in a very competitive K through 12 private institution. And that's what I thought my problem was, like stress and pressure on students. And then what I found through kind of like looking at my POP through different lenses, historical, social justice, and sociological, and then just kind of reading, like you will consume so much literature and it will really help you narrow down your POP. So even if in this moment you feel like, well, this is really broad, actually in my experience, having it a little bit broad to begin with really allows you that plasticity to help it grow and help it narrow at the same time. And I know that sounds like counterintuitive, but it does happen. There's like this kind of stretch and release that will naturally happen as you're in this program.
Thank you. Yes, this is an asynchronous program. There are no virtually synchronous classes. Each asynchronous class will have at least one virtual sync session, but it is usually not a requirement. Again, we have students all over the world, so there might be an evening one and a morning one to do our best to accommodate time zones. Those sessions are recorded and embedded within the course site so that students can listen to them at their leisure and preference if they can't make the session live, but there are no virtual sync sessions. There was a question that I think I missed a little earlier about residency. This past year, which was the first time we've had residency since the COVID pandemic, was about a day and a half. And Hannah, you might know more since you were part of that planning committee. Historically, it's maybe been 2.5 days, but residency is not a full week. It is a couple of days. It is usually here in Baltimore City. And again, it is not necessarily an obligation to attend. It is highly encouraged. But again, we have students all over the world, and depending on where, sometimes visas and other issues can be a travel. There's obviously costs, so on and so forth. So I don't know if that addresses the question around residency. And Hannah, if you want to say anything else about orientation residency.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, it's typically been 2 to 3 days from my understanding. But this year, we had a day and a half, and yeah, it was the first one back and it was so much fun. So if you get to go, it's like the best time ever. And then just about the sync sessions, professors are amazing. The best professors I've worked with ever. And I'm not just saying that because Dr. Abel's on the call. Like, seriously, I had a sync, the fall semester just started last week, and I've had 3 sync sessions across 2 classes already. So I had a sync session yesterday for my research methods 2 class, and then this weekend I'll have my sync session for my mind-brain teaching area of interest, fundamentals of cognitive development. And like Dr. Abel mentioned, there's usually 2 times, like one in the evening, one in the morning. They are always recorded. So you're not kind of doing this on your own, but it really allows you to kind of balance being in like a full-time job and still committing to this program in an authentic way.
There's a question, what if your POP doesn't end up resulting in an actionable solution? I think action is one of those words that can be misleading. And again, the program is evolving and changing. Someone asked when the first program, this iteration of the program has been around since 2013. And I'm saying this iteration, I mean the online asynchronous version. The school had a face-to-face version of an EdD program prior to it officially becoming a school. We were a continuing ed unit, more history than you really need and want to know. So 2013 for this online sync session. And action can be interesting in the dossier sense. Maybe action is the development of a new curriculum, of a professional development series focused on helping teachers better develop their cultural competency. So again, at this juncture, as you're thinking about application, I would not get hung up on actionable. It really is about the broad issue, the problem as it manifests in your professional setting, and at least 3 pieces of evidence that help you know that it's a problem within your professional setting. How many years of education do most successful applicants have? And more conventional or unconventional candidates. I don't know if I know every unconventional candidate who has been through this program, but I know we also had a person who did acupuncture. So again, thinking about kind of the training and the educational component or perspective, because this is an education-based doctoral program. So I would not necessarily get hung up on what you do for a living if there is some educational component to it. And that's usually around professional development, professional learning communities, the training that goes into what you do. One of my students who resides in Brazil creates digital software, but again, it's around learning and emphasis on literacy, and in particular, early literacy. So it really is that focus on education, not necessarily what your job title is. And our students run the gamut, in that some people might have taught for a year or 2 right after undergrad, did a master's degree, and then come into a doctoral program, so they're still fairly young. Some of our students are much more seasoned and closer to my age or even older, and are now at the juncture in their professional career where they find it feasible, because you know you have life demands, commitments, children, all those kinds of things, to earn a doctorate. So we kind of go across the spectrum in my perspective of who our students are and what backgrounds they come from. A short summary of urban leadership. Difference between urban leadership and digital age learning and ed tech. Again, I would think, what is your problem and how you want to approach it? If you are more interested in the technological use of something, then I would probably say urban leadership and, digital age learning and ed tech. I have a former student who was STEM based. She was a classroom teacher. She left the classroom and became more of an independent consultant, doing robotics work, both directly with elementary and secondary students, as well as teaching teachers how to do robotic related things in their own classroom setting. She had been a STEM teacher in the Northeast. She's up in the New Jersey area. And so she was really interested in the tech stuff. And again, we're not that big of a program. You'll still get some of the elements of urban in terms of what makes an urban district, considerations, this, that, and the other. But she really wanted to focus on the technology and the ways to kind of best utilize that to support students. And for her, in particular, female students, develop a more robust STEM orientation and understanding, and consider it, you know, as a possible career field. So again, I think it comes down to the POP. But urban leadership is more about understanding the dynamics of urban school systems and kind of how and why they operate as they do. And I mean that more in terms of looking at the systemic issues of like white flight, redlining, district funding, kind of things from that perspective. But again, even though you get a base in your classes, you will be doing your own reading for research more directly related, again, to your area of interest and your POP. So it doesn't mean that you can't and won't touch upon these other areas if it's applicable. That's just not necessarily where your core classes might be. Hannah, there's a question for you, wanting a little bit more information about how you balance your coursework and full-time teaching.
Oh, that's sweet that I look balanced. So no, that's a joke. A bad one, sorry. So alongside being a full-time teacher, I'm also a wife and a mom to an 8-year-old daughter. Um, the, to say that it's super easy and I get it right every single time is going to give you a highly unauthentic answer. And you're probably going to think, oh yeah, this is going to be great. It is great, but there are times where it is difficult. And that's where you're going to really lean on your peers. You're going to lean on like faculty, your professors within the program, and just kind of give them a heads up that something is going on. Everybody is very understanding. They all know that this is a part-time program and you do have something else going on. So, you know, there is some flexibility. Now, certain assignments need to be turned in certain times for your benefit more than the instructor's benefit. For example, your chapter 1, if you decide to not turn it in when it's due in, if you don't get that feedback, it's really difficult to write your chapter 2. So, you know, you kind of have to balance your time. I have a whiteboard over there, and it's got all of my this is my workspace I'm in, and it's got all my due dates, and I color code everything. And I don't always get the balancing right, but if you have a good support system within your personal environment and then within your professional environment, it does make it easier. And just know that you're like the faculty within the EdD program are just a wonderful support system, and the friends that you make, your peers, whether it's within your cohort or above you, everyone's there to help. I'm actually helping a student in the cohort below us. We've all been there, right? And we all just want to help each other. And so, you know, long story longer, I don't get it right all the time. And I think that that's fine. And there's this, one of the other members in another cohort that year above me, she said to me, Hannah, you're never going to have everything, like you're never going to be on top of everything. And, you know, to Dr. Abel's point, this is not like your master's degree. This is not like your undergrad. There is, it's a higher level of workload, and, you know, the caliber is just different. And so I think just adjusting to that versus trying to have the perfect schedule, I think just being able to sit in that discomfort is what you will need.
And from my perspective, I would say it is important to talk to your close loved ones about how this will change your life, because it will. You'll have to find the time to study, to read, to attend a sync session, to be in the course site and engage in the activities, to work on writing an assignment. That takes time. It might also mean that you need to be forthright with yourself, and that maybe you become a little less active in the whatever, your faith-based institution, your sorority/fraternity, your own kind of volunteer work. I would encourage you to keep your gym time, because you need to take care of yourself and your health, but this does shift your time. It is almost impossible, because I try to never do absolutes, to not change anything in your life and be successful in this program.
Yeah, you mentioned a good point. I had to sit and speak with my husband about what this program would mean, and I actually didn't know what it would mean, so that conversation was like kind of futile. But then at the end of semester 1, I knew exactly what this would mean. And what it would mean is that he would be doing all the birthday parties on the weekends. Like, that was going to be his commitment, and Sunday was going to be my day, and they would do the Costco trip on their own. That was what that was going to be, and that's how it's been for the last year. It means that I texted him last week and said, hey, I'm going to be doing this admissions presentation. I need you all to not be in my space. And you know, you figure it out, but transparency with people who are around you, because you are adding something. You're definitely adding something. And to Dr. Abel's point, find something that will just, like, mental health is going to be good for you. I just came back from the gym. Like, just even if it's like a 10-minute on the bike, go out, get some fresh air, like, just, you have to do something that gets you away from this and your job. So yeah, transparency in all of your relationships is really important.
So if you are a graduate from SOE with a certificate, or a certificate as a component of your master's, no, the MBT is not an option. If you have graduated from SOE with any other certificate or master's, MBT is an option. And if you've never graduated from SOE, MBT is an option. So it really is that clarification of having a certificate as part of your master's or as a standalone certificate from SOE. You can't do the MBT area of interest. I don't know if we have a list of classes that can be provided. On average, because there was another question of how many, it is usually 2 a semester. There might be an exception. It is hard to finish this program earlier than that, primarily because classes build on them. So you've got to kind of take your basic research before you take your intermediate research, before you then take like your next. And those aren't the actual names of the courses. I'm just showing the progression, if you will. So for the most part, people don't finish early. Having said that, when I say early, meaning most people won't finish the program in 3 years. Historically, the program is designed to have a summer finish. So there are summer classes. You're taking classes fall, spring, summer, separate and independent from that residency that we just talked about. This past residency, since it was the first, I actually teach the multicultural ed class. So class technically was happening when orientation residency happened. And it was nice to see people who, I hadn't really seen. I've just, interacted with online. I feel like I've lost my train of thought in here. So it is possible that maybe if your schedule allows, because again, these are not, oh, I'm just going to do my work the night before it's done type of classes. They are not. So you will not necessarily be encouraged to take 3 or 4 classes a semester. But if you genuinely think your schedule allows, like I know 1 year a student took a sabbatical from their job, so they didn't have those responsibilities, so they could kind of be intent. Everyone does not have that option though. You might do a May finish and finish, for that May. But again, that's the exception. It's not the rule. Clarify what's meant by the problem of practice being strategic and transformational. That ideally, whatever you are looking at has some way to make real change. If we go back to my undergrad college example, once they have left you an alum, you really can't control whether they vote or not. So that's really not being strategic in relation to what you do as a living, and it's not necessarily going to be transformational for how your institution does business. But if the goal is to create a service learning program, maybe that is transformational for the institution, because faculty need to kind of buy into service learning, understand what it's about, potentially change how they do their teaching, because some of it might be out and about in the community. It might be with community partners. It might be the academic faculty co-teaching with like the community organizer or some other community person who's related to the issue and the topic. So transformational in that kind of sense, that it changes how the organization or you go about doing business. It's not so much that the program is cohort-based that you miss a class, but again, kind of the staggering of. And so we don't tend to offer courses multiple times in a given semester. So if a course is offered year 1 fall, that course is offered year 1 fall. And if for some reason that you can't take it, most likely you cannot take that class again until the next year 1 fall. There are some classes, and that's more of a core type class. There's only so many faculty. We all do lots of things. So if you're wondering why, but if it's an elective, maybe there will be a spring offering and a summer. So some of it kind of depends on the class. So again, for the most part, you're really not doing this program faster than the 4 years. If you want to focus on creativity and advanced learning within the creativity, advanced learning, and twice exceptional, that's fine. Again, this is your argument. What you are putting forth is kind of your focus, a broad problem, and then kind of how it manifests in your setting. So even if your POP might hit on all 3, kind of broadly speaking, that broad statement, when you come to narrow down to your professional setting, maybe what's most germane is the creativity piece. And I think I just lost, I don't know what the other one was, but those 2 components. Are there opportunities to take courses in areas of interest other than your own? Yes, that option does exist. The program is also looking at how to give more flexibility in relation to electives. But again, even if you are taking a particular course, it doesn't mean that you are not reading research that is still related more broadly to your topic and your interest. So on that level, you're not limited to gaining knowledge only through your coursework. You are also doing it by what else you're choosing to read and engage with in that academic sense. To the person who's asking if there's someone you could talk to, yes, you should reach out to the program, and Sion or Hannah help me out, but I think it's soe.edd@jhu.edu, our general email, and tell them that you'd like to talk to somebody, and they will help get you in touch with somebody. Okay, excellent. The minimum number of credits gets complicated. I stay away from financial aid questions because it's not my bailiwick, but and admissions might chime in. Historically, you need at least 4.5 credits to be eligible for aid, and we don't tend to do 1 or 1.5 credits, which means you're taking 6. So on some levels, the question is, how are you paying for it? Like, can you afford to just pay for 3, however that might be, but also taking into consideration, when do you want to finish? Because again, some courses are structured. So if 2 courses are offered fall of year 1 and you just take 1 course, you're not going to take that other course to the next fall of year 1. And depending on what it is and whether if it's like a prereq for something else, that changes your time. But historically, the program is accommodating. Life happens. People have gotten ill, deaths in the family, and we do our best to make it work. But ideally, you want to do your best to stick with the 2 courses a semester. I think admissions, the rate of completion, and average length, that might be your question. I know I don't know the answer to that question.
And Dr. Abel, I answered the
Okay.
yes.
Is there a faculty advisor and panel for the doctoral dossier? We are not using the terminology advisor. There is still a committee that will help support you through the process of what at the moment is still a proposal for whatever your dossier project will be and the final defense of that. But we're not using the advisor language, no. Up to 6 credits of your master's work can be applied to the EdD, but again, it has to match something that we offer. It's not just any 6 credits. So again, I am currently the lead on our diversity course, and most programs now have a diversity course. So there have been students who have submitted our required form and a copy of the syllabus, and then it gets sent to me, and I look at it and make a determination of whether we will accept the credits or not. So yes, it's possible, but it has to match a class. It's not just any 6 credits. You have an EDS. You're still required to complete 48 credits as part of this doctoral, so that doesn't change the number of credits, even if you're coming in with an EDS. It is 2 classes a semester, and at least one semester it was 3, and that was usually a summer, but we're making some adjustments to that. Hannah, for the most part, you've been taking 2 courses a semester, correct?
Yeah, I decided to challenge myself over the summer and do 3. You don't need to challenge yourself all the time. The course itself is challenging. So yeah, just stick to what the course tells you. No, it was a great course. It was actually the writing course, which was very helpful. So yeah.
And we currently use Canvas for our LMS. It is also 7 o'clock, and I don't know what people's commitments are. So.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Abel. Thank you, Hannah, for being here and the wonderful presentation. And here on the slide, we have some important contact information. I know we weren't able to answer everyone's questions, but any program-related questions, please reach out to the EdD department. The email address is on the slide, soe.edd@jhu.edu. And then, of course, any admissions related questions, especially if you want to follow up on your transcript or any supporting materials, please reach out to the Office of Admissions. Thank you again for your interest in the Johns Hopkins School of Education. We look forward to hearing from you. Have a great evening, everyone.
Take care.